welcome to Cheers. That's one woman's opinion. Today we'll be looking at Cheers Season 1, Episode 7, Friends, Romans, and Accountants. This episode was directed by James Burrows. It was written by Glenn Charles, Les Charles, and James Burrows. Guest cast: James Reed as H.W. Sawyer, Kenneth Kimmons as Fred Wilson, Jonathan Terry as Accountant Number 1, Jim Hudson as Accountant Number 2, Peter Van Norden as the Symbols Player, Eddie Barry as Accountant Number 3, and John Ratzenberger as Cliff Clavin. In the cold opening, Misha, a Symbols Player for the symphony, comes in for a beer. Sam explains that he is tapping on the counter to keep time so he knows when to return to the concert. Diane counts the change back to the Symbols Player and makes him mess up his timing. He gets angry and leaves. Where Everybody Knows Your Name plays. Norm comes in and Cliff notices he's shaking. He explains there is a yearly company party. Norm volunteered to be the party director. Diane says it sounds like a great opportunity, but Norm explains that he's never thrown a party. However, he explains that he has killed a few. Coach tells him that the best party he went to was in a locker room, and the guys were standing in their underwear pouring champagne on each other. Sam tells him that was after we won the division championship, and Coach explains that's why they were in Cleveland. I had to look this up because in the American League East right now is Boston, Yankees, Blue Jays, Orioles, and the Rays. So I had to doing some looking into this, as he said they won the division championship against Cleveland, who is not in that division. They are in American League Central. However, at the time that Sam played baseball in the 70s, there was no Central Division. It was American League East and American League West, and same for the National League. So that was why they played, and they did indeed play against Cleveland. Although I can't remember if they won or not, but they did indeed play Cleveland in their division. Cliff suggests a hot tub party. Norm says that for an icebreaker, he's going to find the biggest audit errors and Xerox them for other accountants. I don't really know a lot of accountants. I mean, I know a few actually. I have some that are friends of mine. And I'm just curious, though, for the accountants out there. Is this something you guys do for fun? Do you actually go through audits and find mistakes just for fun? Doesn't seem that entertaining, but maybe it's an accountant thing. Diane suggests a party where everyone comes as their favorite Elizabethan poet. They make fun of her, and Cliff mentions that Sam got in trouble for practicing iambic pentameter without a license. Diane then suggests a toga party. I love that it's Diane that suggests this and not one of the guys. Norm is excited to have a good idea and asks Sam to use Cheers. He offers to pay half of what Sam thinks it's worth. And I was thinking about this. This shows just how dumb Sam is. I mean, he agrees with Norm as his friend and all, of course. But what he should have done, if he was smart, was charge Norm double of what he actually wants, and then Norm would pay half, and then he'd get what he wants. But Sam's obviously not that smart. At the party, Coach is confused because no one is dressed in a toga. Diane comes from the back. Diane comes from the back, and Sam thinks that people are ready for more drinks. However, they are not, despite that they had the first drink for an hour and a half. Diane tells Sam there's a man in the back who can recite every area code in the country. Coach wants to see and asks Sam if he can go in the back, and Sam tells him to go enjoy himself. This is actually pretty impressive, and I'm actually curious if there's anybody that has this ability to recite every area code in the country. Because that is actually kind of an impressive feat. Why one would want to do it, I don't know, but still, it's impressive. So if any of you out there listening can do this, please let me know. Norm arrives in a toga. He is surprised that he is the only one. He explains he was late. He explains that he was late because he had car trouble. He tells Sam, "You try flagging help dressed like this." He tells Diane the worst party ever, and then he sarcastically thanks her. Diane tries to get everyone to play charades. She starts giving them all the words when no one guesses. She says, my dinner with, and Coach yells, Julia LaRosa. She gives up and tells him he got it. The band leader announces it's limbo time as he grabs a limbo stick. No one is interested. I'm curious on this one I watched this actual scene several times and I still can't figure it out. Did the band leader come with a limbo stick just to play limbo, or does Sam randomly have a limbo stick in the corner of the bar where the piano is? Because he just randomly grabs it out of nowhere. So I'm not sure. Or did maybe no, Norm wasn't there, so I'm gonna say Norm could have brought in, but Norm wasn't there for the party yet because he was late, as I just explained. Anyway, Sam tells Norm that Ruta called and can't make it. Sorry, I don't mean to keep yawning. Norm is upset because that was the date he had for his boss. Diane is upset that Norm would ask her to entertain the boss. Norm tells Sam and Diane, so long as there are boots to be licked, apples to be polished, and fannies to be kissed, I'll be there. He walks away, and Diane tells Sam, that's the first time I've seen a man strut and grovel at the same time. Sam thinks that Diane should help Norm out. Norm's boss, Mr. Sawyer, comes in, and he is incredibly handsome. Diane quickly decides to help Norm. This is interesting because Diane always criticizes Sam for how shallow he is. And yet we see here, and there's been other times, Diane is actually equally as shallow. In fact, I think in another episode, Sam points this out. But back to this one. The band plays and they're horrible. Norm says, but they sounded so good over the phone. Diane is talking to Sawyer when Sam brings the drinks over. He calls Diane the lady of the evening. Sawyer says he would ask Diane to go find a quiet place to talk, but I don't think we'll find any place as quiet as this. Diane notices her drink is watered down. Sam tells her she's a light drinker and didn't want to do something she'd regret. Diane thinks he is jealous. Now, I'm wondering, other than the previous episode with the leap into an open grave drink, where she obviously drank quite a lot because Carla made the comment, you're going to die. And she says nobody's gone past 45. So that means she's obviously drinking quite a lot of those. We don't ever see Diane drinking or getting sloshed at any point. So I wonder if this is off camera or where Sam got that idea. Because clearly that drink that Carla gave does not prove she's a light drinker. It proves that she had too many, and so it wasn't a case of late drinking. Now she had one or two and got sloshed. Norm is talking to Sawyer. I apologize that I keep yawning. I have no idea why. I know sometimes I just came from a walk and I have asthma. Sometimes because you yawn for being tired, but you also yawn to get oxygen. So maybe it's just from that with the asthma and also the allergies. But I apologize if I do that. But anyway, Norm is talking to Sawyer. Sawyer tells him to go sit at the bar and have a good time. Norm happily goes. Sam invites Diane to go play pool. Norm thanks his boss for their conversation. Carla says Sawyer is a good-looking guy. Then she adds, uh-oh, I felt something kick. Carla has explained previously that she's very fertile and she doesn't even need to do anything with a guy. That a guy talks to her and she's not several months along, something along those lines. I don't know the exact quote, but that's why she mentions it. The baby's kicking. They can possibly be kicking. She doesn't have to say baby, but obviously it's implied. Would also be kicking in a mother's stomach. Sam tells Norm he is sickening tonight. This is interesting since a few minutes ago, Sam told Diane she should go out with Sawyer to help Norm, and now he's condemning Norm for trying to get a boss for the date. Norm says, I'm not proud of myself, but then again, I never am. Diane tries to shoot pool and throws the stick. She says that Simon says it's her game. Sawyer goes to help her and then starts manhandling her. Norm comes in and sees them. At first, he tries to ignore it, telling Diane he'll stop in a minute. But when Sawyer tries to kiss Diane against his will, Norm roughs his boss up, and Sawyer fires Norm. Sam comes into the pool room and asks what happened. He tells Norm that his boss just stormed out of the bar. Norm tells him what happened and explains that it's not his boss anymore. Sam asks Diane if she's okay. Diane tells him, "Go ahead, float." Sam tells her, "Believe it or not, I'm really sorry this happened." I like this because as shallow as Sam is, we see from this line, "I'm sorry this happened," he cares about his friends. He wants to help them, which also goes back to when he tells Norm that he's being sickening. Even though that's a change from what he originally said, he's seeing the kind of guy that Mr. Sawyer is, and he does not want his friend Diane to get hurt. And yeah, there could also be signs that already that he's interested in Diane too, which is why he doesn't want to get her hurt. Diane says that it was her fault and feels cheap. She says she sacrificed her dignity and pride. Sam asks, "What's wrong with that? I do it all the time." She says she sees herself through Sawyer's eyes as a cheap harlot. Coach asks if Norm was fired. Norm confirms. One of the accountants asked Norm if he truly hit the boss. He explains he just shoved him around a bit, but everyone cheers for Norm, and then they carry him around on their shoulders as the closing credits come up. And I'm wondering about this. I couldn't tell how many guys are holding Norm, but I'm wondering, George Wendt is not a small guy, and I looked it up. He weighed, and I don't know what he weighs now, but he has weighed anywhere around 407, 457 pounds. Um, and I'm not sure what he was weighing then, but that's a lot to hold. And usually you get the two guys holding you on your shoulder. I don't know if two guys can hold the man that big on their shoulder. So I'm curious if there was multiple men or how that all worked and how hard it was. Just because of his size. But it's kind of cool to see it. So I gave this episode 4 out of 5 beer nuts. I really loved how only Norm shows up in a toga at a toga party because everyone else is too chicken. The entire episode, Norm kisses up to his boss, but when Diane is being attacked, he loses his job to save her. However, even as he is roughing his boss up, he is kissing up to him. It's classic. I also loved how Coach answered every question with Julia LaRosa. And for those of you who may not know who Julia LaRosa was, he was a singer, and he was actually in 1953, I think was the year. But he was on the Arthur Godfrey show, and he's been on there multiple times performing. And in the middle of the show on live TV, because that's back when they did it all live, Alan Godfrey walks up to the man and says, "You're fired," right on the air. Rudest thing ever. So that's what Julia LaRosa is. Why Coach is currently obsessed with him, I'm not sure. That's not clear, but it's still funny because it comes out of nowhere. And every answer to who is, he's like, Julia LaRosa. The MVP for this episode was definitely George Wendt, Norm Peterson. He does such a great job. I mean, even as Diane explained, he struts and grovels at the same time. Such an amazing performance. And I love that the end when he roughs his boss up to protect Diane. As he has a female. Um, I think that's a good thing because Diane was in trouble. He tries to let Diane work it out. Granted, he's not doing it for Diane's sake as a woman feminist, because Diane does say in an episode that she's a feminist. But he does it for the ability to kiss up to his boss and not lose his job and maybe get even a better job with his boss. But then when push comes to shove and he sees Diana's in real trouble, he's like, "Screw the job. I'm going to help my friend." And he does. And he still grovels. It's awesome. Favorite line after Diane refers to herself as a cheap harlot when she says she's seen herself through Sawyer's eyes, Sam says, "We all know you'd starve to death before you made a living with your body." And it's Shelley's reaction to this line that makes this my favorite line because she thanks him. And then as he's leaving, she's like, "Wait, was I insulted?" And she's not even sure. It's great. My runner-up favorite line, after Ruta cancels, Norm yells, "I need a woman." Diane comes in from the back and says, "Does anyone need anything?" Norm yells, "Hallelujah." Here's a little known fact. James Reed, who played Sawyer in this episode, went on in 1985 to play George Hazard in the 1985 miniseries North and South. Kirstie Alley, who joined the cast of Cheers in 1986, played his sister Virgilia. And if you haven't seen that miniseries, I highly recommend it. There's three parts: books one, books two, and book three. One and two are really good. And then Patrick Swayze, my favorite actor, is I don't want to give it away, but he's not in the third episode, third book of the series. And it just not that good after that. Kirstie Alley's on it. Basically, most of the cast is pretty much wiped out by that point. And that's why it's just not as good. They should have stopped it book two, in my opinion. Um, but anyway, the question for this week: do you think Norm did the right thing when he roughs up his boss to protect Diane? Or do you think there should have been another way that he did it where he could have kept his job? Or what do you think of that? Please share your comments on the YouTube page or anywhere else where you're listening. And if you like this episode, please comment, like, and subscribe and answer the question. You can also join the Facebook group, Cheers, that's One Woman's Opinion. And you can comment your questions, answer to questions on there and anything else. You can also follow us on Instagram at Cheers, One Woman's Opinion Podcast. And you can also email us at Cheers, One Woman Podcast at gmail.com. As always, we are on YouTube and Podbean. Sorry, pronounce that correctly. Eventually, I hope to get it spread out more so that we get more listeners. And please join us next week for a recap of season 1, episode 8, Truth or Consequences. Oh, you know what? That whole thing about Diane with the drinking, forget what I just said because that's coming up. I didn't realize that. I watched it and forgot that I haven't done the recap yet. So now it's even less sense as to how Sam knows that Diane is a light drinker. But join us next week, and that is One Woman's Opinion.